Momoshiki has just returned in Boruto, and even though it feels exciting to know, the mysteries that it has brought with itself are completely mind-blowing. For those of you who are unaware, there was an obvious pattern going on in the story that I pointed out 2 months ago, with chapter 23 being the benchmark for Kawaki's debut and comeback in the lore. The 25th chapter was the one where Boruto's karma, which was fueled by Momoshiki's essence, resonated for the very first time. It showed us a glimpse of the Otsutsuki's power, which eventually marked his return from the dead. But when it comes to the time skip, the same chapter marked the debut of Momoshiki, meaning it was correlated from the beginning. Now we can supposedly go through the event showcase in the other chapters of part 1 to figure out where to Blue Vortex is headed. But one of the biggest mysteries of the time skip as of now is that while Boruto might shock Jura with Momoshiki's powers, would they be enough to defeat him? Well, that's exactly what we are going to find out, on top of a lot of other things. So make sure you are subscribed by now, and let's begin. It all starts with the narrative of the Otsutsuki versus Ten Tails in the story. Way before Boruto had imagined to fight the incarnation of a Ten Tails, a war had begun in the cosmos, where Otsutsukis used the Ten Tails species to evolve themselves. Now thousands of years later, on a planet called Earth, the Ten Tails awakened consciousness and intellect, making it a big deal for the Otsutsuki if the Shinju ever decided to avenge their race. But that's just a hypothesis at this point, considering how Jura is more interested in the human world and its affairs, especially the concept of love and how it powers up people. While there are also other things in the narrative which can amplify the Ten Tails plot, like if Jura decides to consume the chakra fruit that he has promised to Code, granting him an evolution that the universe has never witnessed before, cause obviously a Ten Tails eating a chakra fruit is not a common thing in this universe. But keeping all that aside, the current hype revolves around Momoshiki, who might grant his powers to Boruto for defeating this threat. The time skip has already shown us Boruto using the karma fearlessly. Now here is the first mind-blowing take that I don't think you must have heard before. Jura could be alive in the time skip, and Boruto using the karma is the living proof of it. While the next chapter would give us some clarity on what might happen in the future, the simple fact that Boruto has promised Momoshiki the control of his body once Jura is done for, and the flash forward showing us Boruto using the karma while being under the control of his body paints a completely different picture. It's either that the deal gets modified later after Kawaki goes all out, simply because Boruto wants to get rid of all the exceptional threats and not just Jura, or it could be that Boruto simply betrayed Momoshiki, meaning by using the karma in the Kawaki fight, he's leaving a door open for the Otsutsuki to appear cause he couldn't stand on his word of giving up on his body. I'm truly fascinated on how every new event in the story opens the gates to endless possibilities. And now that we know Momoshiki would lend Boruto his powers in his battle against Jura, there is only one logical thing in my mind, which might explain how we go from Boruto and everyone versus Jura to the prologue sequence where it's only Boruto versus Kawaki. It's a really interesting possibility, so bear with me. So as we know that the current deal between Momoshiki and Boruto is that once Jura is gone, the vessel would surrender the whole body to the monster as a thank you. Till then the monster will need to lend him his power, which simply means letting Boruto channel them without interrupting him unexpectedly. But the first chapter paints a different picture, with Momoshiki's karma still being used by Boruto, not against Jura but Kawaki. So assuming Jura was already dead, why didn't Boruto just give up on his body to let the Otsutsuki take over? Well, what if I told you Jura has still not been handled? Rather, the situation has gotten completely worse, and that's because the Shinju and Kawaki could have become one after Jura offered him to consume his soul thorn bulb, exposing Kawaki to not just limitless powers of Ishiki but also the Ten Tails amped chakra, which has changed his whole appearance. He's not Kawaki Uzumaki anymore. Instead, he's the apostle of destruction who first gained the attention of Jura and later his powers too. Do you really think if Jura had been defeated through Momoshiki's powers, the Otsutsuki wouldn't have tried to take control of Boruto forcefully if he didn't let him do it? Not just that, at this point Boruto can't back off from his word, since that would be too out of character for him to do unless he has become a selfishly cunning warrior himself who would do anything to prevent the timeline from going worse. But I guess it's none of that, and in reality Momoshiki didn't try to take him over cause Jura just merged with Kawaki to feel a sense of true fulfillment. 2 videos earlier I discussed how Boruto is following the Toriyama route with the number of characters as well as concepts. So you must remember how I mentioned Kawaki as Martian Vegeta, who gets infected with the dark energy or mindset to follow his own path. But now I feel like even though that much was true about his character, there is another concept from Dragon Ball which perfectly fits the case of Kawaki and Jura, and that is fusion. While we have literally seen fusion before in the story, be it Himawari and Kurama or Boruto and Momoshiki, but Kawaki's fusion with Jura would surpass all odds, as it would drive the world into a path where nothing would remain. One of the reasons for me to believe this comes from the philosophical approach of Jura towards Kawaki. If he really wanted, he could have gotten rid of both Boruto and Kawaki with enough efforts, but he was more interested in talking about the things like effects of love and the matters of the world with Kawaki. He even acknowledges that Naruto is alive, which is what is driving Kawaki so far, and since he is also gathering as much knowledge as possible about the human world, there is a chance that he would somehow end up finding out the flaws of the ninja system, and once he puts his stakes in front of Kawaki, it could change him forever, as he would realize that no amount of power would be sufficient for humanity to protect themselves from the Otsutsuki. It's not even an assumption at this point, as he has already said it himself in chapter 78 before attacking Sarada. The shinobis cannot protect themselves and are usually the ones who die first. Now while that's indeed true, the reason behind his fusion with Jura could involve other factors too, with the leading one being their common enemy, the Otsutsuki clan. Well, that's something I mentioned in the beginning too, a war in the cosmos where voiceless beings were exploited by the powerful ones for their own benefit. So there are mainly 2 points which make me believe that Jura and Kawaki would come together to defeat the Otsutsuki. The first reason hinting at Kawaki and Jura's union comes from the possibility of them having more conversations in the future, where Kawaki would reveal all his plans and goals to the Shinju. Now with the entry of Momoshiki in the Jura struggle, I can clearly see where this is going. Kawaki would explain to him that he wants to keep Naruto safe from the outside threats, especially the Otsutsuki, with Momoshiki being one of them who resides within Boruto. He won't be hesitant to tell him that he wants to kill him, Code, and Boruto as well, cause after all he's Kawaki and he doesn't care. So after acquiring the knowledge of Momoshiki, Boruto would eventually use the karma against him someday, which could make Jura go like, oh so this is what Kawaki was talking about and something like that. Next up we would have Kawaki telling Jura about his plans to destroy all of Otsutsuki just because of the menace that they have created on the planet. It would lead to some counter questions and stuff, till Kawaki might eventually get brainwashed against his own people. Now the second reason that I believe could form a union between Jura and Kawaki solidifies this possibility even more. When Aida was stalking the Shinju with her ability, she was instantly caught by Mamushi, followed by Jura identifying her eye and calling it by its name. We know he had never seen a Senringan before, which means the only way for him to recognize it was by remembering it from his past life as the Ten Tails, and he must have seen some Otsutsuki using it, most likely the one who brought him to the planet, in case it wasn't Ishiki. This means Jura is pretty familiar with the Otsutsuki lore, so there may be something new that he knows about the clan, which could push Kawaki on in alert mode, driving him to destroy the shinobi world before moving over to the outside world. Well, there will be a dedicated video on this theory soon on the channel, so I hope you subscribe to not miss that. Now let's go back to Borushiki and how much damage could he exactly inflict on Jura. So Boruto has went to Momoshiki with a lot of confidence, but he's forgetting one thing, that even if Jura gets handled, Momoshiki is still a huge danger in itself, and that's why he got so anxious when the karma activated 2 times so far. So why does he believe that selling his soul is the key, when in reality he's just increasing the odds against him? Think of it this way. If theoretically speaking Momoshiki's help plays out in defeating Jura, then it would be clear that Boruto's body, after being amplified with the karma, can actually do wonders, cause defeating someone who's a Ten Tails incarnation is not an easy feat. So how powerful would Momoshiki be once he gains the actual control of Boruto's body? Well, he would be using his Otsutsuki experience to utilize the newly unlocked powers of the vessel, and looking at how Boruto could one-shot Limitless Code, who's far above Jigen, Borushiki should easily be able to surpass the present Kawaki without limiters. I won't say the Kawaki from the future cause we don't know exactly what made him so powerful, but if I had to guess, I would still say there is some involvement of Jura in it. So I'm again asking you to subscribe, so witness me diving deep into that topic in this banger. In the first part of the story, Borushiki is significantly stronger than most Kage level shinobi and can compete with high tier threats like Kara Inners or weakened Otsutsuki. However, he is below the likes of Ishiki, Naoto's Baryon mode or Sasuke with the Rinnegan. His power is roughly comparable to a partial Otsutsuki transformation, with some limitations due to Boruto's body not being fully overtaken. Now when it comes to Boruto from 2 Blue Vortex, he is considered the strongest shinobi in the series, potentially at or above planetary level. The way he defeated Code, who overpowered Sasuke, and his mastery of Rasengan Uzuhiko places him above most characters. We know Momoshiki could replicate most of Boruto's power after taking over him, so assuming he would absorb a lot of planetary energy, he could literally become a planet buster, meaning he would definitely give Jura a tough fight. But a one-on-one battle to get rid of the Shinju is still a bit unrealistic, and that's exactly why Boruto asked for Kawaki's help in the matter before. Basically, his plan could be to come together with his Kama counterpart to get rid of Jura once for all. But Koji has warned that making Jura angry would lead to complete destruction, so maybe the final fight would not take place on Earth, rather some other dimension, which can only be accessed through the Kama. But one thing that I would like to add is that even though a strategical approach against Jura might work, Boruto turning into an Otsutsuki and training so hard has already surpassed the feats of the original Borushiki, so Momoshiki's powers won't likely double his feats. Instead, we could see a 10 to 30% increase for valid reasons. In the first part of the story, Borushiki was leagues above Boruto, as he one-shotted Boru and even clowned Limiter Code. In 2 Blue Vortex, Boruto himself has climbed and surpassed that old Borushiki by debilitating full power Code. So a hypothetical timeskip Borushiki is only marginally stronger than timeskip Boruto in most matchups, cause the powers of Momoshiki will not magically solve all the problems since we have already seen all the feats. The worst part is that Jura knows how to nullify Uzuhiko, so even if the Kama could amplify that attack, it won't matter in the end, cause the enemy is already immune to it. Now there are a few ways that I could think of which could hypothetically help Borushiki to defeat Jura, even though I'm not sure how much possible it is, but it just makes a bit of sense. First off, Jura is a large blob of chakra which has fused with the claw marks, which is how he gained consciousness and intellect as well as an immunity from absorption. So hypothetically speaking, if we can somehow remove his Shinjitsu amped armor, it may be possible for the Kama to absorb him. The second possibility is Momoshiki's time stoppage, if it's actually a true ability, and it's kinda self-explanatory that how Jura would get defeated by that. But I still like to believe that after all the major battles and massive fights, Jura would take the cell approach and somehow pass down his will to Kawaki, making him the next big bad. I'm getting some more exciting stuff in the coming days, so make sure you visit my channel if you aren't in the notification squad. Also check out these videos for more amazing stuff. I will see you next time.